St. Louis, Missouri, and she's going to show us how to create a terrarium. I'll leave it to you, Leslie.
Okay, thanks, Robert. We're going to plant this terrarium today. It's called a Copenhagen. It's kind of unusual. It sits in a wooden base. It's also a terrarium that can be left open or closed, so that depending on what type of plants you pick, you have the option of going either way with this terrarium. So we're going to start. I made a tube, even though I don't really need a tube for this terrarium. I made a tube to show how it would work if you had a very, very small opening and couldn't get your hand in to put the gravel in. Now, both of these two layers, particularly the charcoal, must be washed well before you use it, because it will be very dusty and it will fluff up on the glass and make the glass have black dust all over. Also, you want to start with the cleanest possible terrarium, because once you have it all finished, it's not as easy to clean as it was when it was empty. So this technique keeps the blowback, I guess you could call it, on the glass to a minimum, and helps in the end to get your terrarium glass interior clean. We'll do about an inch, healthy inch of this. And that has kept the splashing, because of course this is wet. Very, very clean to a minimum on the glass. The outside of the glass, of course, is easy to clean. And the charcoal is very light, so it bounces. And if it's not clean, you're going to really regret it. And it also will be part of the water system, where you have evaporation and condensation in something that is very similar to the natural process, which is why you can keep a terrarium completely closed, because it acts as a natural, it's its own little microclimate. So we have those two things layered at the bottom, and we're going to put the coffee filter, which I've already trimmed, down this way. And that will keep the soil, which will be the next layer, from going down into the gravel. Now, to make it more attractive than just looking at dirt on the side, I'm going to put this sphagnum moss all the way around in a little ring, to hold the dirt. Be like a little cup. All right, so we've placed our ring of sphagnum moss. It's going to cover the soil and make it look very pretty bright green. And we're going to use our funnel to fill it with soil. Now, the soil needs to be moist. The reason for that, there's a couple of reasons for that. One reason is it won't fly up on the glass, just like the other two layers. But also, the most important thing about a terrarium is that your moisture level is correct. If you have too much moisture in a terrarium, it's very difficult to get rid of it, especially the smaller the opening, the more difficult it will be to get that done. So you use a very moist potting soil, so that after you plant your plants, all you really have to do is clean the plants with a spray of water. That will add more moisture, but not too much more moisture. And then you can start out, that enables you to start out with a terrarium that is not over wet, which is very important. Okay, now we've chosen our plants and we've settled on an arrangement out of the terrarium, because obviously you don't want to juggle things. You want to juggle things as little as possible once you get inside the terrarium. Also, planning for the plants that will be most in the way as you plant. Those should be planted last. So I'm going to start with this little fern. He's a very cute little guy. And I'm going to be a little bit drastic with his roots. He's technically not a terrarium plant, but he is a very small fern who will be quite happy here, especially since you can keep plants small just by virtue of the fact that they don't have too much growing medium to take over. And texture is very important to me when I do a terrarium, so I like the fluffy texture of this little guy. Make sure that they are beautifully clean, because when you look through glass, you see every little horrible thing. So we've planted our terrarium, and we have cleaned the terrarium plants, and we've used this bulb baster, which is broken, but if you have one that works, you will be able to just gently hose off your plants where they have dirt on them and get things nice and clean. If you have one that's big enough for you to get your arm into, then you can wipe the inside with paper towel. If you don't have one, if you have one that's tiny, you can oftentimes rig up a paper towel on the end of a tweezer or a tong and make a big knot, if you know, for lack of a better word, and tuck and bind it, and then you can go in and use it as like a giant swab, and it works pretty well. You don't want to put a staple or tape or anything on it, because that will smear on the glass. But you want to have the terrarium as beautifully clean as possible, and then it's time to accessorize. We are going to use this little urn, and I'm going to fill it with some calocarpus and beautyberry berries, which are a very pretty purple, and they accent the calatheas real nicely. So we're going to put that kind of right in the ivy, so it looks natural. And then we have some blue rocks, which also accent the calathea. This is not straight, and we're just going to put a few rocks to give a little color contrast, so that you're not always looking at soil. Just trying to make it look like it happened naturally, so don't want it to look too studied. And there we have a very nice terrarium. And we'll put it back on our base, and you won't see any of the gravel. We have other accessories available to make charming additions to your terrarium. Little bronze animals, tall birds, which can be used with or without their little vases, and fairy furniture, things like that, gazebos. If you have a big enough terrarium, those are nice, especially if you have something to creep up them, like this creeping fig would. So that's all there is to it. For more information, see the January issue of Gateway Gardener, or go to gatewaygardener.com.